Yeah, you can start.
Yes. So I'm Abhiram, and this is Graduate Analysis 2, and I'm going to present on the topic polar decomposition. So, for a bounded operator, uh, we are going to look at the concept of what a polar decomposition of a bounded operator. So, for a complex number, we can uh, write a non-zero complex number z as modulus of z times e power I theta for some unique theta in the interval 0 to 2 pi. And so that's what we call the polar decomposition of a complex number. So in this, we extend that concept to a bounded operator between Hilbert spaces H and K. So here, what we'll have is for any bounded operator T in B of H comma K, we can write T as U times the U times A, where U is what we call a partial isometry, and A is a positive operator. And this decomposition is unique provided it satisfies another condition. So that's what we call the polar decomposition of T, and that will be the presentation. So throughout these notes, we'll denote Hilbert spaces, like H and K will denote Hilbert spaces, and for that, first we need to define a concept called partial isometry. And so this partial isometry is a very it's a crucial topic, and so we'll define the polar decomposition using this concept. And so for that, this lemma is used through this presentation, and it's a very easy lemma, but it's better to give the proof of it so that we don't people don't get confused. So the lemma states that if T is any bounded operator between Hilbert spaces H and K, then kernel of T is equal to kernel T star T, which is also equal to kernel of the square root of T star T, and which is also equal to the range of T stars. It's perpendicular to the range of T star. And um, like Pratik's presentation, which was done before, there we saw that T star T is a positive operator, so it has a unique positive square root. And so this this T star T, square root of T star T it's a well-defined operator. And the proof of this is really trivial. So for any x in H, we'll have the norm of Tx square is equal to the inner product of Tx and Tx, which is equal to inner product of T star Tx comma x. And once you write T star T as T star square root of T star T the whole square, so you can take the T star T square root, that we can take that to the other side, because square root of T star T is it's a positive operator. It's also self-adjoint, so you can take it to the other side, and this will mean that norm of Tx is equal to norm of square root of T star Tx. So what this means is kernel T is equal to kernel T star T square root of T star T, right? So next is we have to show that kernel T is equal to range T stars perp. So that's also very trivial. So if x is in range T star perp, if and only if x comma T star y is 0 for all y in K, but this happens if and only if Tx comma y is 0 for all y in K. This happens if and only if Tx equal to 0. And so kernel T is equal to range T star perp. And we know that S perp, the whole perp, is equal to span S closure. If S is subspace, then this means that S perp, the whole perp, is equal to S closure. So kernel T perp is equal to range T star closure. Now, of course, we have to be careful here because if T is a bounded operator, then kernel T is a closed subspace of H. But range T or range T star need not be a closed subspace. So we need to apply the closure. We need to look for the closure. And finally, we'll have to show that kernel T star T is equal to kernel T star T square root. So square root of kernel T star T. And that is also simple. So kernel T star T power 1 by 2 is contained in kernel T star T. That is because if x is in kernel T star T power 1 by 2, then T star T power 1 by 2 times x is 0. But then you can apply T star T power 1 by 2 again. That will mean that T star T x is 0. So that's also in kernel T star T. Now to show the converse, we'll observe that if x is in kernel T star T, then T star T x is 0. This implies that inner product T star T x comma x is 0. And then you'll take square root of T star T to the other side. So this implies that the inner product of T star T square root x times that thing is 0. So this means that the norm of T star T square root of T star T x, that is 0. This happens if and only if T star T power 1 by 2 x is 0. So that x is in kernel T star T power 1 by 2. And so kernel T star T is equal to kernel T star T power 1 by 2. And we have proven the lemma. So I'll just let you look at this again. This is a very trivial lemma, but the results are used repeatedly in this presentation. So it's important in that aspect. So next we'll define what a partial isometry is. So suppose you have an operator U in B of H comma K. So we say that U is a partial isometry if any one of these three conditions are satisfied. And all three conditions are equivalent to each other. So that's what we'll prove in this proposition. So any operator that satisfies one of these three conditions is called a partial isometry. So the three conditions are U is equal to U star U. And the second condition is U star U is a projection. And the third condition is U restricted to the kernel U perp is an isometry. So we'll prove the equivalence now. So proof that the one implies two. So if you define P equal to U star U, then P star is equal to U star U the whole star, which is again equal to U star U, which is equal to P. So P is self-adjoint, and P square is equal to U star U, and because U star U is U, this is equal to U star U, which is equal to P. So P square equal to P, and P is self-adjoint. Therefore, P is a projection. And proof that 2 implies 1. So consider M as the range of U star U. Now, because P is a projection, M is a closed subspace. And M perp is equal to kernel of U star U. So why is this the case? Because M perp is equal to kernel P star, because range P perp is equal to kernel P star, but P is self-adjoint, so P star equal to P. So M perp is equal to kernel P. So by the previous lemma, here we have that kernel T star T equal to kernel T, right? So M perp is equal to kernel U star U, which is equal to kernel U by lemma 2.1, the previous lemma. So we have P is a projection and M is a closed subspace. And so we can write H as M direct sum M perp. So now any element Z in H can be written as X plus Y, where X is in M and Y is in M perp. So U star UX is equal to PX by definition, and PX equal to X because X is in M, so M is in the range, right? So projection map is identity on the range, so PX equal to X. But if you consider Y, then uy is equal to 0 because y is an mperp and mperp is equal to kernel u. So it's here. So mperp is equal to kernel u, right? So we'll have uy is equal to 0. And so consider uz. So uz is equal to ux plus uy, which is equal to ux. And we saw that ux is equal to u star ux. And ux is equal to uz. So this implies that this uz is equal to u star uz. So since this is true for all z in H, we have u equal to u star u. So up until now, we have shown that 1 is equivalent to 2. Now we will show that 2 is equivalent to 3. That is, P equal to u star u is a projection if and only if u restricted to kernel u perp is an isometry. So the proof that 2 implies 3. So we can again define M as range P. So M is a closed subspace of H. And for any x in H, we'll have norm Px square is equal to inner product Px comma Px, which is equal to inner product P square x comma x. And because P square equal to P, we'll have this equal to inner product Px comma x, which is equal to u star ux comma x, which is equal to norm ux squared. And so norm of Px is equal to norm of ux for all x in H. And this also means that kernel u equal to kernel P. But kernel P perp, again, kernel P perp is range P star closure. So I'll again go back here. So kernel T perp is equal to range T star closure, right? So we have that here that kernel P perp is equal to range P closure, but range P star closure, but P star equal to P, and so this is equal to M perp, M closure, which is equal to M. And because kernel U equal to kernel P, we have kernel U perp is equal to M. So we have to show that because we have now found that kernel U perp is equal to M, we have to show that U restricted to M is isometric. But that is really obvious now, because if x is in M, then Px equal to x, because M is defined as range P, so Px equal to x in the range. And so norm Ux, which is equal to norm Px, which is equal to norm x. And so U is an isometry on M. And the proof that 3 implies 2 is finally will show that 1 and 2 and 3 are equivalent. So given that U restricted to, this is the third part. So U restricted to kernel U perp is an isometry. So let M be kernel U perp, which is a closed subspace of H, because S perp is always a closed subspace of H. So then M perp equal to kernel U. This, as I said before, M perp is a closed subspace and kernel U is also closed subspace. So we can see why this is true. And write Z1, Z2 in H as Z1 equal to X1 plus Y1, Z2 equal to X2 plus Y2, with X1, X2 in M and Y1, Y2 in M perp. We can then see that U star U Z1 comma Z2 is equal to the inner product of U Z1 comma U Z2, and because M perp is equal to kernel U, Uy1 and Uy2 are going to be 0. And so this is equal to inner product Ux1 comma Ux2. And because U is isometric on M, Ux1 comma Ux2 inner product is going to be X1 comma X2. And this is also equal to X1 comma Z2, because X1 and X1 comma Y2. So X1 comma Y2 is going to be 0 because X1 is in M and Y2 is in M perp. So the inner product of X1 and Y2 is going to be 0. If you add 0 to this equation, you will get this is equal to X1 comma Z2. Now because this is true for all Z2 in H, we can see that u star u is at 1 equal to x1. So what does this mean? So we have taken an element z1 in H, we have written it as x1 plus y1, z1 as x1 plus y1 with x1 in M and y2 in M pub, but the operator u star u when applied to z1 just gives x1. So this means that u star u is the projection of H onto M. So that is what part part 2 is, right? So u star u is a projection. Okay. Any questions up until now? Because yeah, this proposition is really crucial. So partial isometry is a very crucial concept. If you have any questions up till now, you can ask. In fact, you can ask anytime. But yeah,
not too many people are there, I think, to ask questions. But anyway, the comment is
yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes. There are only two persons apart from you and me, I think. So anyway, so the comment is a partial isometry is almost an isometry. It is like you have a U, which is partial isometry is defined as U star U is projection, and you
yes, sir.
So it is just an isometry from range U star to range U. Say that is what it means. It is a unitary,
yes,
not just isometry. It's a unitary between them. U is a partial isometry if and only if U star is a partial isometry, and it says you don't care about the kernel of U and kernel of U star. If you take the orthogonal complement, it is just a unitary between them.
Yes, sir.
Unitary if you don't. The orthogonal complement of the kernel of U and U star.
Yes, sir. So I'll discuss that in the next section. So initial space, final space.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll cover that also. Yeah. So suppose that use partial isometry, and if we define M to be kernel U perp and N as range U, then U is identically 0 on M perp, which is equal to kernel U, and U maps M isometrically onto N. So this is what sir means. So U is unitary operator from M to N, because yeah, it's obvious. So U maps isometrically M onto N, and so we refer to M as the initial space and N as the final space of the partial isometry U. And here I just want to make sure a small to confirm a small detail that N is closed. Before I mentioned that range U, range T need not be closed in K, but if you use a partial isometry, then range U is actually closed in K. So why is that the reason? Because if Yn is a sequence in N such that Yn tends to Y for some Y in K, that is what I mean is if Y is contained in N closure, so you have a sequence Yn that converges to Y. So because U maps M isometrically onto N, so for every Yn in N, there exists a unique Xn in M such that Uxn equal to Yn. Okay, so we can see that Xn is equal to U star U Xn. So this is because U star U is the projection of H onto M. So this U star U Xn is equal to U star Yn, and because U star is a continuous operator, so because Yn tends to Y, U star Yn tends to U star Y, so Xn converges to U star Y, and Yn is equal to Uxn, so Uxn now converges to U of U star Y, and so Y is equal to U star Y, and so this U star Y belongs to the N because N is range of U, and so Y belongs to N, therefore N is a closed subspace of K.
It is just the range of a projection anyway. Range of U is same as the range of U star or something. Anyway, range of a projection, so it should be
closed. So now
U star. See, U is partial isometry. The same way U star is partial isometry, and range of U is same as range of U star. So that's also another proof.
Yeah, that's also another proof. So U star is because U equal to U star U, U star is equal to U star U star. And so because by proposition 1 part 1, so u star equal to u star u star, we can see that u star is also a partial isometry by the proposition given above. So, and the lemma tells us that kernel u star is equal to n perp and range u star equal to m. So n is the initial space and m is the final space of u star. And again, we can see that u star u is the projection of h onto m, while u star is the projection of k onto n. So this all follows from the proposition in the lemma. And we are now ready to go into polar decomposition, but we'll make a small definition here. So given a bounded operator t, we use the symbol modulus of t to denote the positive square root of the operator t star t, which is in B of h. So if t is normal, this definition is like consistent with the definition of the continuous function calculus. So now we go to the polar decomposition. But what I felt was, if I state the polar decomposition and then prove this lemma, it will be a bit confusing. So let me just state the one important lemma. So I'll state and prove this lemma and then go to the polar decomposition. The proof of the polar decomposition requires this lemma.
So, yeah, anyway, use this lemma several times, and
yes, sir. So
you can go ahead anyway. No
problem. As in, should I go to the decomposition directly?
You can recall the proof, no problem.
Quickly. Yes, sir. Okay. Quickly, yeah. Okay. So let S1 and S2 be total subspaces of Hilbert spaces H1 and H2, such that xj, xk 1 is equal to xj, xk2 for all jk and j. So what you have is there you have two subsets S1 and S2, which are indexed by j, such that xj, xk inner product is equal to xj, xk when you compare S1 and S2. Then there exists a unique unitary operator u from H1 to H2, such that u xj xj1 is equal to xj2 for all j in j. So the proof is it's very trivial. So what you have is just map xj1 to xj2, and then because xj1 xk1 is equal to xj2 xk2, you can extend this linearly. That's also because S1 and S2 are total subsets of H1 and H2. So it's all like yeah. So we just have to show that the representation is well defined, the linear extension is well defined, and then extend it to H1, which is equal to the closure of span S1, and then show that the inner product is preserved even in that case. And that is pretty much it. So you have a unitary operator u from H1 to H2, such that when restricted to S1, US1 is S2. And this operator is also uniquely defined because if V is another operator satisfying the same hypothesis, then U minus V is 0 on S1, and kernel U minus V is a closed subspace. So kernel U minus V is H1, so U equal to V. Anyway, so this proof is it's a trivial proof. It's a bit lengthy, so I'll just recall the lemma again. So you have S1 and S2, which are indexed by J. They are subsets of total subsets of Hi, and such that inner product of xj1, xk1 is equal to the inner product of xj2, xk2 for all jk in j. And if that is the case, then there exists a unique unitary operator u from H1 to H2, such that uxj1 equal to xj2 for all j in j. So we'll go to the polar decomposition theorem. This is a polar decomposition. So let T in BH, K be any bounded operator. Then T admits a decomposition T which is equal to UA, where U is in B of H comma K, U is a partial isometry, and A is a positive operator, and kernel U equal to kernel T equal to kernel A. Further, if T equal to VB is another decomposition of T as a product of partial isometry V and a positive operator B, such that kernel V equal to kernel B, then U is equal to V and A equal to B equal to modulus of T. This thus the decomposition unique, and this decomposition is called the polar decomposition of T. And the third part is, if T equal to U times modulus of T is the polar decomposition, then modulus of T equal to U star T. Right. So the proof, again, once we have shown the lemma above, the proof is also really simple. So let x and y be in Hilbert space H, then inner product of Tx comma Ty is equal to inner product of T star Tx comma y. So T star T is modulus of T squared. So we will get the inner product of modulus of Tx comma modulus of Ty. So what we have is, for all x and xy in H, we have inner product of Tx comma Ty is equal to inner product of modulus of Tx comma modulus of Ty. And so if we define M as the range of modulus of T and N as range of T, the closure obviously, then M and N are Hilbert spaces because they are closed subspaces of a Hilbert space, so they are Hilbert spaces themselves. And by the above hypothesis, what we have is range modulus of T and range T are total subspaces in M and N respectively. And for every element in range mod T, and we have modulus of Tx comma modulus of Ty is equal to inner product of Tx comma Ty. And so the above equation will satisfy the hypothesis of the previous lemma. And so there exists a unitary operator U0 from M to N, such that U0 modulus of Tx is equal to Tx for all x in H. So now what we do is, because M is a closed subspace of H, let P be the projection of H onto M. Then we can then consider the operator U, which is equal to U0 P. So this operator is an operator from H to N, and our claim is that U is a partial isometry. This is because since U0 is unitary, kernel U equal to kernel P. So kernel U equal to kernel P. So kernel P is going to be M perp. So M because P is a projection of H onto M, so kernel P equal to M perp. And by the definition of partial isometry, U is partial isometric if and only if U restricted to kernel U perp is an isometry. So kernel U perp is going to be M, and so U restricted to M is U0, which is an isometry. So U is a partial isometry. And finally, by definition, T equal to U0 modulus of T. And now note that P is a projection of H onto M. So M is a range of modulus of T. So P's identity on the closure of range mod T. So modulus of T equal to T times modulus of T. So we can write this as T equal to U0 modulus of T, which is equal to U0 P times modulus of T. And because U equal to U0 P, this T equal to U times modulus of T. And kernel U, which is equal to M perp, which is equal to kernel of modulus of T, which is equal to kernel T by the initial lemma, which stated that kernel of T star T, square root of T star T is going to be equal to kernel T. Right. So that is part A proved. So part A, we should show that T equal to UA, where U is a partial isometry, A is a positive operator, and kernel T equal to kernel U equal to kernel A. That's what we have proven here. So T equal to U times square modulus of T, and kernel U equal to kernel T, which is equal to kernel modulus of T. So now we will show part B. So suppose T equal to VB, where V is a unitary operator and B is a positive operator. V is a partial isometry, B is a positive operator, and kernel V equal to kernel B. So we have to show that U equal to V and A equal to B equal to modulus of T. So because V is a partial isometry, by definition, V star V is a projection of H onto the kernel V perp. So kernel V perp is going to be kernel B perp by hypothesis, and kernel B perp is equal to the closure of range B. So B is a positive operator, right? So this kernel B perp is equal to range B perp. And what this means is that V star V is the projection of H onto range B closure, which means that V star V times B is the operator B itself, because V star V is the identity on range B closure. And so T star T is equal to B star V star VB, which is equal to B V star VB, which is equal to B squared. So T star T equal to B square, which that's what we have shown, and B is a positive operator. So B is equal to modulus of T by the uniqueness of positive square root. So B is a positive operator that is also the square root of such that B square equal to T star T. By uniqueness, B should be equal to modulus of T. And so what we have is V times B, which is equal to V times modulus of T, equal to T, which is equal to U times modulus of T. So this means that for every x in H, V modulus of Tx equal to U modulus of Tx. So V and U agree on range modulus of T. And they also agree on its closure, because V and U are continuous operators. So which means that V and U agree on range modulus of T closure by continuity. But range T modulus of T closure is actually the initial space of both U and V. Why it's the initial space of V? Because B equal to modulus of T, right? And kernel V perp is equal to range B closure, which is equal to range modulus of T closure. So which means that this range modulus of T closure is the initial space of both U and V, and that means that U should be equal to V. And this is also really simple. You can just take M to be range modulus of T closure and M perp to be its perpendicular, and U and V are both 0 on M perp, and U and V agree on range modulus of T closure, which means that U must be equal to V in that case. So we have also shown B, which is that if T equal to VB is another decomposition of T as a product of partial isometry V and a positive operator B, such that kernel V equal to kernel B, then we must necessarily have U equal to V and A equal to B equal to modulus of T. And so this is called the polar decomposition of T. Finally, we have the condition that if T equal to U modulus of T is the polar decomposition, then modulus of T is equal to U star T. This is the final part. And so suppose you have T equal to U times modulus of T. Then U star U, as we saw above, because U is a partial isometry, U star U is the projection of H onto the closure of range mod T. So U star U times modulus of T should be equal to modulus of T. So now apply the definition. So because U times modulus of T equal to T, we have U star T equal to modulus of T. That's what part C is. And that is the polar decomposition theorem, and that's my presentation. Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. So really don't have any comments, but there are some remarks and other thing you can read in Sugar's book.
Yes, sir.
Like, and for others, I'm saying it's like exercise.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Maybe we can discuss it later if needed.
Yes, sir.
Questions, comments, you can ask. Otherwise, we'll end the session. Any question? Okay, so we will see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.